In the Money is made possible by financial support from Old National Bank and Chicagoans like you. Thank you.
Hello, welcome to In the Money. I am your host, Kimberly, a CPA and financial executive who today is financially secure, but was not always. I consider myself one of the lucky ones. I was fortunate enough to have success as an employee and as a business owner. One of the key drivers of this success was knowing the needs of my customers and fulfilling that need. However, in the beginning, as a business owner, I struggled out of the gate because I did not consider myself a salesperson. As an employee, your customers are handed to you. However, as a business owner, to succeed, you cannot afford to overlook the need to master the ability to drive sales. Without sales, your business cannot survive. And it's therefore crucial that you know how to sell effectively. Without sales, you cannot generate revenue, and without revenue, you cannot pay your bills, invest in your business, or make a profit. The more sales you generate, the more resources you will have to invest back into your business, which can help you expand, hire new employees, and improve products or services. Finally, knowing how to drive sales can also give you a sense of control over your business success. And this is what this show is all about: less money stress. Instead of relying on luck to drive sales, you can take an active role in shaping your business destiny by developing and executing effective sales strategies, which can also help you overcome your selling fears. Come on in and join me in the living room. Today in the living room, we have a guest who will be able to tell us how to tap into our fears about selling in order to overcome them. By developing a strategic selling process, you can refocus that nervous energy, but that is only part of the solution. You will also need to overcome the psychological roadblocks. Please welcome licensed clinical social worker Tamika Hill to the living room. Hi, Tamika.
Hi.
Thank you for coming in today. So you heard about the topic that we're going to talk about today, which is overcoming those selling fears, those roadblocks. What do you think the source of that comes from?
Failure, the thought of failure, especially when people are looking at us or we think they are. The thought of failing scares us more than anything.
I know I have a fear of rejection when I first started my business. Like, oh, I can't do that cold call. I was just, I don't know what I thought was going to happen to me. I was like, physically, like nobody's going to hurt me, but I just couldn't overcome that. What are some tips to help me, one, recognize the fact that my fears are irrational, and then secondly, what can I do to kind of start that process of overcoming?
The first thing I say, facts versus feelings. Feelings are valid, but facts are facts, right? So what you have to go into, like with sales, the attitude is business. That's a fact. Your feelings may really be valid of feeling rejected or, however, it's about business. This person doesn't know you. You don't even know this person. So if there is a no, it's not a personal no, right? And just because this person is a no, I always say maybe that wasn't the yes that you needed.
Okay. So I know when I go to networking events or conferences, I'm more comfortable because I know everybody's there from a business perspective. But sometimes it's just hard for me to break into that conversation. What tip would you give for someone who's nervous and you have 3 people standing over there, you don't know anybody? How can they overcome that fear and just kind of break into that conversation?
So, trick the mind, basically. Like if you went out to a club or you went, not even a club, just say you went out to eat right by yourself and you were sitting like at the bar area and they have food. Most of the time, we're just friendly by nature. Most people will be like, hey, how you doing? Sometimes you have to let your alter ego take over and imagine that you're somebody else, or this is not a room full of business. Sometimes we take things so literal that we make it more personal than what it needs to be. Like, what's so wrong with saying hi? Because that's just what we do as humans. We speak. And stop overthinking what comes after the hi.
So what about the situation where I actually do get rejected? How do I not internalize that?
One, they don't know you. Again, facts versus feelings, right? The fact is that person doesn't know you or your business for that matter. So how is it personal? And what I do is I have clients, I say, if this is a fact, where's the evidence to support it?
I like that. And they can't come up with anything?
No, of course not.
So when we're talking about sales, we can do sales over social media. We can, at business events. And, business events, physical events are more personal, I would say, than social media, because social media, you don't really have to, deal with anybody one-on-one.
Yeah.
So how can I take that social media persona and put that in my day-to-day physical presence where I feel more comfortable?
Well, for me, it's kind of, I think like sometimes, like you said, social media, you don't have to be, you can actually pretend and be like this whole different person. I wouldn't say take the whole version of your social media self, because then that's not really probably you. Maybe learn to marry the balance of that, where people still get to see a part of what you reflect on social media, but still get to see the authentic you as well.
Now, what about the fact that, there's, you don't know anybody, you feel like, maybe you're having a negative reaction mentally because you feel so much pressure being in this environment. Is that a sign of something? Somebody's like really like terrified when they're in these situations and they just can't seem to function?
It could be social anxiety. Like if you experience it, so social anxiety, you wouldn't just experience just because you didn't know anybody in the room. You also would experience the same symptoms if you knew people in the room, right? So definitely figuring out if you have that, like going to a therapist or a professional, for figuring out like, do I have social anxiety versus just anxiety of rejection?
Okay. Earlier you mentioned tricking the mind. So could a sales process where you do step A, step B, step C as a process help you be more calm in selling and get rid of those fears because you're doing a process step by step and not really thinking about it or feeling the emotion about it because you just go on step 1, step 2, step 3. Can that help you with the fear aspect?
One, you got to know your personality type, right? So like me, I'm a free flower. So the moment you try to make me be strategic, I'm going to lose it because I'm going to be in my head trying to think of ABC, right? So a person who is like very 1, 2, 3, that definitely would work for them versus the person like me who's a free flower and me just allowing myself to be my authentic self.
So you bring up a good point. How do I know which person I am? Are there other personality types when it comes about thinking about selling, about how you follow a process to actually get that revenue to come in the door? What are those types?
So again, you have that outgoing personality, right? They are comfortable and they flow in any environment. The other person, like you said, maybe to the extreme of nervous, or then you may have somebody in the middle. Once they warm up to the room, then they become themselves. So those usually are the 3 characteristics. And really like evaluating yourself if you don't go to a professional and really like figuring out, hey, what am I naturally like and what triggers me?
Okay, so we have these personality types. Can you give us some examples of awareness in this situation of a business conference trying to network, how each personality type can be active in these moments and actually get what they came there to get accomplished? For example, I am that person who goes to a business conference and I warm up. Because I got to observe, I got to see what's going on, I got to check it, do I know anybody, are they, can I feel comfortable here, do I feel safe, safe not like physically, but just safe mentally to be my authentic self, to go out here and network and create these relationships. What would be your recommendation to me walking into the conference? I'm nervous, I haven't warmed up yet, and usually it takes 1 or 2 people to talk to me, and then I'm kind of like, oh, okay. But how do I deal with that?
One, I think like pre-planning. So I feel like sometimes you need to look at the agenda of something before you walk in it, and maybe identify some people that would be your target audience, right? And get some of their background. That definitely would put you more in control and give you a little leverage because you'll know something about them that they may or may not know about you.
You are so right. It's all about control. I like the control. No, you're so right.
Yes.
I don't feel like I'm in control. So that is so right. What about the person who is the, free flow? They don't really need any tips because they just are good anywhere they go.
So that's me, right? But the downfall to my personality is lacking strategy sometimes because you get so caught up in the free flow that you forget your agenda.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you might not get as much accomplished. You might forget to get that contact information because you are just, you're having a good time and you're comfortable and you're not really thinking about the end in mind. What about the person who's anxious and nervous?
They're kind of in the middle, right? So I would definitely say they probably need to prepare, just like in the middle. But also, they probably need to identify like who's the sociable person in the room versus maybe who's not, and who would they feel more comfortable around, or commonalities, meaning like what does this person have in your interest, and possibly striking up a conversation with just interest versus business.
Okay. So on another note, it's a saying that says a closed mouth doesn't get fed. So at the end of the day, when you're selling, you have to ask for someone to buy your product or service. And given those 3 personality types, how can they get that question out instead of getting stuck?
Sometimes I think make the person want what you have, right? So again, that reverse psychology. Maybe you're not the person who's going to like sell directly in the matter of direct, like asking, will you buy what I have? You can almost convince the person that you have what they need. So picking which sales strategy actually works with your personality.
Oh, okay, so someone who's anxious and nervous, that direct sales approach might not be best for them. They have to really find something that's more of, hey, you want what I have because this is such a great thing, and they're just living whatever that product or service is. Okay, I like that. And then someone who's probably like you can just say, hey, you want this?
Or you don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Okay, but it really depends on your personality type. And that's probably why a lot of people struggle with sales, because they might be focused on something that's really not a strategy that's not their personality type. And then going back to that rejection, and we flip it, but still it's hard for people not to internalize. Any tips?
Like I said, one, again, about that whole fact, because you will feel rejected. I'm not going to take that away from you, right? But you have to go in your mind and say, what makes this rejection a fact? They said no, but what makes it a personal no? Like, what if they just can't afford what you have?
Right.
So it's kind of like you making sure that you're not personalizing every no.
Okay. These are some great tips. Thank you for joining us today. And coming up, we're going to have someone with their own success story in sales.
Hi, I'm Ryan G. I'm the host of Twinish.
Representation is super important, like you here doing this podcast, right? Showing other brown girls all around the world that they can do things that are new and exciting.
Tune in to my show every single week on CAN TV 19. I'm personally excited. Are you?
As we know, sales are the lifeblood of any organization, and business owners must build this skill to succeed. Our next guest has just done this, but first he had to overcome his own psychological and strategic barriers to selling his own services to help businesses with their IT needs. Please welcome Thomas Gottfried to the show. So tell us about your business.
Well, my business is focused on the micro market, 1 to 9 customers or 1 to 9 computers per customer, where I can interact directly with the owner of the business, get exactly what they want, and then provide it. And it's all wrapped around infrastructure, which would be the pipes, the storage, the networks, everything that brings data in and out of a corporation or a small business. And the storage of it, the security of it is a big part of what I do.
Especially today with so much cyber security issues, that's really important. Now, what made you want to start this business?
I have started just loving to work with small computers since I was in high school. The TRS-80 came out, and the SRS-92 Texas Instruments calculator. And my family thought I was nuts to spend $70 on a calculator.
Oh, wow.
But I learned so much because it had a tape drive. It was just like a little mini computer of today. And from there, I went to Purdue, had a minor in CS, and went into industrial engineering, where process is everything.
Now, CS is computer science?
Computer science, yes. So process is everything in computer science and IT. And you think about the hackers who come in, they follow a defined process to get your confidence if they're trying to get you to click on it, or bring emotion out to say, you should buy what I'm selling because if you don't, you'll get hacked. and then you're hacked.
Now, when you decided to start your business, did you know anything about selling, how to get those customers?
I was an engineer
Okay.
and a plant manager and a VP of operations, and then I went into IT with Y2K.
Oh, okay.
So I got drawn into it because I had the knowledge of the processes and the operations and the plants. And they said, we need people to program and advise the programmers, not really program, but advise the programmers how to make the systems work. And from there, I worked into the infrastructure side. And then one day I decided, in addition to be a cyber security consultant for big companies, I took that same knowledge and applied it to small companies.
Okay. Now, for our audience members who don't understand infrastructure and Y2K, can you explain what that is?
Yeah, Y2K was the year 2000 when we thought everything would shut down because we went from 2 decimals to 4. So 1999 became 2000, but our programs only had 2 decimals, so 99.
Got it.
So remember, there was a lot of apprehension.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not old
You're
enough
not
to
old
remember
enough to
that.
understand. Well, you'll read about it in history books someday. So I was intrigued by it, mainly because it fed into what I loved from the beginning. And very early on, when I was right out of Purdue, I started teaching people how to set up their Mac, how to set up their PCs. I go in their homes and teach them. And I love the coaching, the teaching. I've been a soccer coach for many years. I've been a business coach. I've run a business incubator and a business career center to help people. So from that, I got a lot of the skills I needed to know how to come to people and identify a problem and then say, here's how I can help you fix it.
Now, how did you, I mean, does it feel good to be able to do something that you're passionate about and be able to start a business?
Right, it is.
Now, did you think about the revenue component? Like, were you scared to go out on your own because it's like you have to build, you know, your name in that particular, because people know you and all this other stuff, they don't really know you in this area where you have in your business, but you are passionate about it.
Right.
So how did you go about getting those skills?
Well, the business incubator, the nonprofit career center, where we are always trying to figure out how to pay the bills with a minimal amount of donations. But that got me the network that I needed. So when I launched my company, not really formally, I was always a cybersecurity consultant. And up to 6 months ago, I was on a project for a large, clinical trials type company doing big data.
Okay.
So I had that as a buffer.
Okay.
So I could start slowly. So it's actually been about 4 years of formal, in my business, formally launched, but it started back in 1983.
Ah, okay.
With those little side jobs, those little things where I help people. The Career Center, we set up our own networks, our own computers using free software, Linux, which is an open source, meaning you don't pay for it. It's
So
public
you didn't
domain.
have the pressure of needing those sales right away because you were doing it kind of on the side and knew in the future sometime that you wanted to do this full time.
Right, people call it a side hustle.
Yep, side hustle, exactly.
I have a
what it
daughter who does Against the Grain, or a company that she mimics. It's not
Okay.
a real company, but she sells bread to people.
is. Oh, okay.
And she'll call me and say, Dad, I have 5 loaves. I'll say, I'll call a couple people. She'll deliver it. $5 a loaf. And so it's a side hustle. The same with this. And then when I got really serious 4 or 5 years ago, I said, I'm going to start charging. But I had to feel my way through that. How do you charge? I heard in the previous segment that fear of being rejected. So I started with very low prices. So I took the rejection of that's too much, and sometimes my prices were a third of what a professional would charge because it was a side hustle.
Now, do you feel that people didn't respect you as much as far as the business because your price was so low? They were thinking, oh, that wasn't the issue at all. It's just more you internally not being comfortable having a higher price.
Never had that problem. I present it as I'm as much your advocate to help you fix your systems as you are a customer.
Okay.
The money is very incidental in that type of network, no like and trust relationship.
Okay.
But it follows over time, and many people come to me and pay me more.
Oh, okay.
Because they say, you are worth more. I know you're doing this as a passion project. And as I evolve into this, I raise my prices as I get more customers.
Okay.
So supply and demand.
I like that. Now, how did you go about knowing what your price point should be?
I talk to other people. In fact, the person who introduced me to you introduced me to another person, great networker, and I spoke to him about his subscription managed service provider business, and he's a giver.
Okay.
He just told me everything. He told me the software to consider, which I did for a year. Then I switched to another. Then I switched to another. So a lot of experimentation. But the confidence was always there that I could figure out a problem, and the fear.
Right.
You get into it and you say, I don't know what I'm getting into, but I'm going to stick to it over and over, and eventually I figure it out. And if I'm not worrying about the hourly rate, because it's a subscription,
Right.
I can spend all night figuring it out, and then I remember it for the next time.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's a good
And
point.
as I said, computers follow a process. So if you have a problem with Microsoft Word today, 4 other people had the same
No,
problem.
that's a good point. Now, what about the, you know, if you're in a subscription service business, part of that is about volume. You know, so that, you know, so today you're comfortable enough to not be where your prices truly are, but at some point, if you want it to be a viable business, you have to get there. And then that whole fear component, how do you tamp that down and get to that next step? Like you said, you started increasing your prices. How did you get comfortable even doing that?
I get comfortable because as you get busy, you have to.
Okay.
And that's the supply and demand macroeconomics. As you raise prices, fewer people say yes. And I'm very transparent about it. Before I start an engagement, I tell people right up front, and I think of it the way I am. If a plumber comes to my house and hands me a bill for X dollars, and I was thinking it's going to be 100, 200, 400 less, I'm not happy.
Right.
And I probably won't refer him.
Okay.
So as I walk in the door or on the phone, I say, here's my average price. This I think will cost this much. If it goes over that, I don't charge more.
Okay. And then going back to the supply and demand, like mentally, you're to the point where you're like, if this person can't or won't pay this, and that's not the right customer for me, because now your confidence has been built about, you know what the pricing should be, you know what you have to offer. So mentally, you're like, I'm worth this. And then 2 months, you're like, hey, it might be this. It's just because your confidence level and your business knowledge about what you're doing has improved.
Right.
Is that fair to say?
It's fair. I have a couple rules I follow on that. First, I walk away if I don't feel comfortable with the person.
Okay.
If I don't feel the trust, because my business is trust.
Okay.
If you don't trust me, you should not do business with me.
Right.
And if you get any indication that, I don't think my passwords are safe with him, I don't think my personal data is safe, we shouldn't be doing business. And second, if you ask for much more than we originally agreed to, like one customer, I said, it's per computer, this dollar amount per computer. Hands me a check, I go home, she called me and said, well, I want you to do all 8.
Wow.
And I said, no, I'm bringing your check back tomorrow. I haven't cashed it. It's his price per one
Right.
computer.
Right.
It's my time and effort. And she said, okay, I'll take it back. Misunderstanding or not
Right.
sure.
Now, what tips would you give those out there who are starting a business and they have to sell themselves? They don't have a sales team. What tips would you give them to be successful?
The first tip that comes to mind is know your product, know your capability, so practice. If you're going to sell these coffee mugs and you're going to put some emblems on there, you better practice and make sure you can actually screen print or whatever it is. So same thing with computers. If you say, I will help you, I had a call before we came in, someone was on the phone with a hacker, gave him all his information. I said, I'll be there tomorrow if you need me. Well, we've got it under control. What advice? So I sent them some emails, but I know exactly what to do, or
Right.
I wouldn't have given an answer. So that's the most important thing.
Okay.
If you can't deliver, if you haven't practiced, and the third, I guess, is don't start advertising until you do the first 2.
Oh, okay. I like that.
Practice makes perfect, and the more you collaborate with other IT people, the better you get. Having a full-time job with access to people I could walk up to, I say, what would you do if this Macintosh doesn't boot up? I found out the other day from I can't say the company, but a company in town that someone called me, and I didn't know the answer. They called me back and they said, you hold down the volume up and the power button for 60 seconds.
Oh, that
And
makes sense.
I said, really? They said it worked.
Wow.
So you collaborate, you share, you have to share knowledge, you have to join forums. I'm going to a technical training next week just to share knowledge and get more knowledge.
Okay. Perfect.
So it's almost being a professor, a doctor, a lawyer. You have to keep a financial person, you have to be aware of the tax code and the accounting rules.
Right.
If you don't stay up to, you can't just offer yourself, send emails and say, I can do this.
Right. You have something to back it
And I
up.
guess the fourth thing is I don't advertise.
Okay.
I go by word of mouth.
Perfect.
Because then I can have a trusting relationship.
Well, thank you so much for those tips, and thank you for joining us today.
I'm Connie Lindsay, one of your hosts for Joy in the Breakthrough. On our next episode, I interview my friend and co-host, Anna Valencia. We talk about her crucible moment and how that propelled her toward joy. Tune in this Monday on CAN TV Channel 19 or stream us at cantv.org or on the new CAN TV Plus app.
Tune in this Monday on CAN TV Channel 19 for an inspiring sit-down conversation with Alderwoman of the 20th Ward, Jeanette Taylor.
I was one of the people who's like, I'm never getting in politics. The hell with these politicians. I'm lazy. Don't do nothing. A good friend of mine said to me, well, you might not get into politics, but politics is getting into you.
Selling can be a challenging and intimidating process, but it's also a necessary and rewarding one. By understanding the psychology of selling and developing effective sales strategies, you can overcome your fears and achieve your business goals. Remember, effective selling is not about manipulating or tricking your customers. It's about building relationships, understanding their needs and wants, and providing them with solutions that meet their unique challenges. By focusing on these principles, you can develop a sales strategy that's authentic, ethical, and effective. To succeed in sales, you also need to be persistent and resilient. Rejection will happen, but it's not a reflection of your worth or your business value. Use rejection as an opportunity to learn and improve and keep pushing forward towards your goals. Lastly, remember that selling is not a one-time event, but an ongoing process. Keep refining your sales strategies, testing new approaches, and adapting to changes in the marketplace. By doing so, you can continuously improve your sales performance and achieve long-term success. So don't let the psychology of selling hold you back. My challenge to you is to embrace the sales process and focus on building long-term relationships that will help you achieve your business goals and thrive in today's competitive marketplace. If you have any questions about today's topic or past topics, please send me an email to Kimberly@inthemoneyemail.com or follow me on Instagram at Diva of Cashflow. Remember, we are on this journey together.